daughter of the woman millionaire, was blind, until the single father janitor changed everything. Before we jump in, this story reached people in over 50 countries last week. Let's see how far it goes today. The rain drummed against the marble floors of Riverside Towers as Marcus Thompson wrung out his mop for the 100th time that October evening. At 42, his weathered hands told the story of 15 years cleaning these pristine hallways, each callus a testament to his unwavering dedication to his daughter Sarah. The luxury building housed Manhattan's elite, but Marcus belonged to its shadows. "Daddy's late again," 7-year-old Emma Hartwell announced from the 23rd floor, her small fingers tracing the cool window glass. Despite being born blind, Emma possessed an uncanny ability to sense the world around her. Her mother, Victoria Hartwell, 35 and worth $200 million from her tech empire, barely glanced up from her laptop. "Emma, stop pressing your face against the window," Victoria said coldly, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Success had built walls around her heart thicker than the penthouse's bulletproof glass. Marcus's radio crackled. "Thompson, we've got a spill on 23, Hartwell Penthouse." His stomach tightened. The Hartwells meant trouble, especially little Emma, who seemed to delight in making his job harder. As the elevator climbed, Marcus remembered when Emma was just 3 before the accident that stole her sight. She'd been different then, curious, kind. Now, 4 years later, bitterness had poisoned her young heart. "You're here, aren't you?" Emma called out as Marcus entered with his cleaning cart. Her acute hearing had developed remarkably since losing her vision. "I can smell your cheap soap." Marcus knelt beside the spilled juice, his jaw tight. "Evening, Miss Emma." "It's disgusting how you crawl around on the floor like some bug," she continued, her voice dripping with learned cruelty. "My mommy says people like you exist to serve people like us." Victoria emerged from her office, designer heels clicking. "Emma, that's enough." But her tone lacked conviction. Deep down, she believed her daughter's words reflected natural order. Marcus stood slowly, his knees creaking. "All done, ma'am." His voice remained steady, professional, though something flickered in his dark eyes, a depth that seemed inconsistent with his humble station. "Wait," Emma demanded, blocking his path with her small frame. "I dropped my bracelet somewhere here. Find it, Bugman." Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he began searching. The silver bracelet caught moonlight near the coffee table. As he retrieved it, Emma's fingers accidentally brushed his palm. For one impossible moment, she gasped. Through the darkness that had consumed her world for 4 years, Emma saw a flash. White coats, surgical instruments, her own small hand and a larger, familiar one. "What?" she whispered, but the vision faded instantly. Marcus pulled back quickly, placing the bracelet in her palm. "Good night, Miss Emma." As the elevator doors closed, Emma stood frozen. Those hands, she'd felt them before somewhere in the buried memories of her early childhood. But that was impossible, wasn't it? 3 weeks later, Emma sat in Dr. Richardson's office for her monthly checkup, her mother's impatient sighing filling the sterile room. At 7, Emma had learned to navigate the world through sound and touch, but her mother's disappointment remained a constant, suffocating presence. "I'm afraid there's still no change," Dr. Richardson told Victoria, his voice carefully neutral. "The optic nerve damage from the car accident appears permanent. We've exhausted conventional treatments." "What about the experimental procedures in Switzerland?" Victoria demanded. Money had always solved her problems before. "Mrs. Hartwell, Emma's case is unique. The trauma occurred at such a critical developmental stage." He paused, studying her file. Interestingly, there was a consulting physician who reviewed her case 3 years ago, made some unusual observations about potential neural regeneration, but he never followed up. Emma's fingers found her silver bracelet, the one Marcus had returned. Something about that night haunted her. The familiar warmth of his hands, the flash of impossible memory. Back at Riverside Towers, Marcus was polishing the lobby's bronze fixtures when his radio crackled again. "Emergency on 23, kids having some kind of episode." Marcus's blood ran cold. Taking the service elevator, he arrived to find Emma collapsed in the hallway, convulsing slightly while Victoria screamed into her phone for paramedics. "Please step back, ma'am," Marcus said quietly, kneeling beside Emma. His demeanor shifted completely, suddenly calm, focused, professional. "Don't touch her," Victoria shrieked. But Marcus was already checking Emma's pulse, his movements precise and practiced. "She's having a neurological event possibly related to her previous trauma," he murmured, more to himself than to Victoria. "Emma, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can." Emma's small fingers found his, gripping tightly. In that moment of contact, another flash blazed through her darkness. The same gentle hands, but now she saw more. A kind face surrounded by surgical lights. A voice saying, "You're going to be okay, sweetheart. I know you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You were there when I was little." Marcus's face went pale. "Emma, just rest. The paramedics are coming. Your hands, I remember your hands." She tried to sit up, but Marcus gently held her steady. Victoria watched in stunned silence as her arrogant daughter clung to the building's janitor with desperate trust. "How do you know medical terminology?" she demanded. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Lucky guess, ma'am." But Emma heard the lie in his voice, felt the tremor in his experienced fingers. "You're not just a cleaner, are you?" she whispered. The paramedics burst through the penthouse door, breaking the moment's intensity. As they loaded Emma onto a stretcher, she reached out blindly. "Marcus!" she called, using his name for the first time. "Please." "I need to remember." Watching her disappear into the elevator, Marcus felt the carefully constructed walls around his secret begin to crack. 15 years of hiding, 15 years of penance, and now this bright, broken child threatened to unravel everything. Emma spent 2 days at Mount Sinai Hospital undergoing tests that revealed nothing new. Her brain showed unusual electrical activity during the episodes, but doctors remained baffled. Victoria hired private nurses and filled the room with expensive flowers, yet Emma asked repeatedly for one person. "Where's Marcus?" she demanded, as Victoria arranged another bouquet of orchids. "The janitor? Emma, you're being ridiculous. He's not just a janitor." Emma's voice carried newfound certainty. "I remember his hands, Mommy. From before. From when I could see." Victoria's blood chilled. Emma's memories from before the accident were fragmented at best. The trauma at age 3 had wiped most recollections clean. "Emma, you're confused. The medications—" "No." Emma's shout echoed through the private room. "He was there. I remember surgical lights and his voice telling me everything would be okay." Meanwhile, Marcus sat in his studio apartment in Queens, staring at a photograph he hadn't looked at in years. A younger version of himself smiled back, wearing surgical scrubs, holding his medical degree from Johns Hopkins. Dr. Marcus Thompson, pediatric neurosurgeon. The man he used to be before one terrible mistake destroyed everything. His phone buzzed with a text from building management. "Hartwell girl asking for you. Family requesting your presence at hospital. Professional appearance required." Marcus's hands shook as he pulled his only suit from the closet, the same one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 15 years ago, when grief and guilt had consumed him whole. His daughter, his precious Sarah, had died on his operating table while he tried desperately to save her from the same type of brain trauma that now plagued Emma. The hospital corridor felt like walking through his past. Antiseptic smells triggered memories of countless surgeries, of the weight of other people's lives in his hands. Room 2317 held his reckoning. "Marcus!" Emma's face lit up despite her sightless eyes. "I knew you'd come." Victoria studied him with new intensity. Gone was the humble janitor's posture. Marcus stood straighter now. His cheap suit couldn't hide the confidence that seemed to emanate from his core. "How are you feeling, Emma?" His voice carried a gentle authority she recognized from her fragmented dreams. "The doctors say I'm fine, but I'm not fine." Emma reached toward his voice. "I keep having dreams about you, about lights and machines and someone who looked just like me." Marcus's breath caught. Sarah. Emma was remembering Sarah somehow, but that was impossible. They'd never met. "Tell me about these dreams," he said, moving closer. "A girl with my face, but she could see. She was scared, and you held her hand just like you hold mine. But then," Emma's voice cracked. "Then she went to sleep and never woke up." The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Victoria watched Marcus's face crumble, saw tears he'd held back for 15 years finally surface. "Emma," he whispered, "some memories aren't ours to carry." "But I do carry them," she insisted. "They're in my hands, in my heart. You saved me once, didn't you? Before I was blind." Marcus looked at Victoria, his secret hanging in the air like a loaded gun. "Mrs. Hartwell, I need to tell you something about your daughter's original surgery." Victoria's world tilted as Marcus began speaking in the hospital room. His janitor's facade completely dropped. 3 years ago, when Emma first lost her sight, I was called in as a consulting neurosurgeon. Dr. Richardson thought her case was hopeless, but I saw something different. "That's impossible," Victoria breathed. "You're a janitor. You clean floors." I was Dr. Marcus Thompson, head of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins, he said quietly, until I lost my medical license 15 years ago. Emma's small hand found his across the bed rail. What happened? Marcus's voice cracked with old pain. I had a daughter your age, Sarah. She had the exact same brain trauma as you, Emma. During her surgery, I made a choice, an experimental procedure that could either save her completely or he couldn't finish. She died, Emma whispered, her extraordinary intuition filling the gaps. On my operating table, my pride, my desperation to save her, it killed my little girl. Tears flowed freely now. I lost everything. My license, my career, my will to live. The guilt consumed me. Victoria stared in shock. But Emma's surgery 3 years ago was successful. She survived. Because I learned from my mistakes with Sarah. Marcus's grip on Emma's hand tightened. When Dr. Richardson consulted me about Emma's case, I saw my daughter's face in hers. I couldn't let another child suffer because of my pride. Emma's breathing quickened. You fixed something, didn't you? Inside my head? I guided the surgical team through a modified approach, safer than what I'd attempted with Sarah. We saved your life, but couldn't restore your vision. At the time, I thought that was the end of it. But something's changed, Emma said with startling clarity. These past few weeks since I've been touching your hands, I see flashes. Memories that aren't mine. Marcus exchanged a meaningful look with Victoria. Emma, there's a theoretical phenomenon called cellular memory transfer. Some researchers believe traumatic experiences can be stored in neural pathways and potentially shared through touch, especially in children with heightened sensitivity. You're saying she's experiencing your daughter's memories? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Or her own memories from when she was under anesthesia, mixed with my emotional imprint from the surgery. Marcus turned to Emma. When I operated on you, I was thinking about Sarah constantly, praying I wouldn't fail again. If there's any truth to cellular memory theory. Emma sat up straighter. The dreams aren't random, are they? They're showing me something important. What do you see, sweetheart? Light, Emma said simply. In all the dreams, there's light trying to break through darkness. And your hands. They're not just remembering the past. They're showing me a future. Marcus's medical mind raced. Emma's recent episodes, the electrical activity in her brain, her heightened sensitivity since their first contact. What if her neural pathways were actually regenerating? What if the guilt and redemption he carried in his hands was somehow catalyzing her healing? Mrs. Hartwell, he said, turning to Victoria with desperate hope, I have an idea. It's experimental, risky, and probably impossible. But if Emma's brain is responding to some kind of emotional neural connection we've established, tell me, Victoria demanded, seeing her daughter's face bright with possibility for the first time in years. I think I might be able to help Emma see again, but it means trusting the man who's been cleaning your floors for 3 years, not the doctor I used to be. Emma squeezed his hand tighter. I trust you, Marcus. I've been waiting my whole life to really see you. Dr. Richardson paced his office like a caged animal. Marcus's proposal spread across his desk in neat handwriting. This is madness, Thompson. You're talking about uncharted neural territory based on cellular memory theory that most of the medical community considers pseudoscience. Respectfully, Doctor, Emma's brain scans show unprecedented electrical activity since our contact began. Marcus had spent 3 sleepless nights researching, calling in favors from colleagues who still remembered his brilliant work before the tragedy. The optic nerve damage isn't as complete as we initially thought. Victoria sat rigidly in the corner, having spent the weekend investigating Marcus's past. Doctor, Marcus Thompson had been legendary, youngest department head in Johns Hopkins history, pioneer in pediatric neurosurgery, author of groundbreaking papers on brain trauma recovery in children. I found the malpractice records, she said quietly. You weren't stripped of your license for incompetence. The review board said you pushed boundaries to save your daughter that no other surgeon would have attempted. Marcus nodded grimly. The experimental procedure I tried on Sarah, if it had worked, she would have had complete neural regeneration. Instead, I caused massive brain trauma. The board ruled it reckless endangerment, even though I was operating on my own child. But the technique itself was sound, Dr. Richardson admitted reluctantly. I've read your papers. The theoretical framework for neural pathway reconstruction in traumatic cases was revolutionary. Emma had been unusually quiet, her small hands folded in her lap. In my dreams last night I saw Sarah, she said suddenly. She wasn't scared anymore. She was standing in a bright place and she told me to tell you something. Marcus's breath caught. Emma, She said the light was always there, waiting. She said you never lost her, and you won't lose me either. Emma's sightless eyes turned toward him with uncanny accuracy. She said it's time to trust yourself again. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. For 15 years, he'd punished himself, believing his arrogance had killed his daughter. But what if his love, his desperate need to save her, had created something extraordinary instead? What if Sarah's neural patterns, somehow preserved in his emotional memory, were the key to healing Emma? The procedure would require precise electromagnetic stimulation of Emma's damaged neural pathways while maintaining direct skin contact with you, Dr. Richardson explained. If this cellular memory theory is correct, your emotional imprint might serve as a template for rebuilding her visual cortex. Victoria looked between them. What are the risks? Complete neural shutdown, Marcus said honestly. Emma could lose more than her sight. She could lose everything. And if we do nothing, she remains blind, but alive and healthy. Emma stood up, her movement more confident than anyone had seen in years. Mommy, I want to try. Emma, sweetheart, you could die, Emma finished. I know, but I'm already dying, aren't I? A little bit every day living in this darkness, being angry and mean because I can't see the good in the world. She felt her way toward Marcus, her hands finding his face. I see you, Marcus. Not with my eyes, but I see who you really are. You're not the man who made a mistake 15 years ago. You're the man who's been carrying Sarah's love all this time, waiting for someone who needed it. Marcus knelt to her level. Are you sure, little one? Emma smiled, the first genuine smile Victoria had seen from her daughter in 4 years. I'm sure. Besides, Sarah showed me something else in the dream. She showed me what I'm going to look like when I can see again. What did you see? I was beautiful, Emma whispered. Not because of how I looked, but because I could finally see how beautiful everyone else is too. Dr. Richardson cleared his throat. If we're going to attempt this, we'll need the full surgical team, complete monitoring, and Marcus. He paused. I'll need your hands steady and your heart clear. This isn't just about saving Emma's sight. This is about finishing what you started with Sarah. Marcus stood, feeling lighter than he had in 15 years. When do we begin? The operating theater at Mount Sinai had been configured unlike any surgery in medical history. Emma lay sedated on the table, her small hand resting in Marcus's palm, while an array of sophisticated monitoring equipment tracked every neural impulse in her brain. Dr. Richardson led the surgical team, but everyone understood that Marcus was the true conductor of this impossible symphony. Neural activity is off the charts, announced Dr. Lisa Chen, the neurological specialist who'd flown in from Boston specifically for this case. I've never seen patterns like this in a living patient. Victoria stood behind the observation glass, her hands pressed against the cold surface. For the first time in her adult life, her money couldn't control the outcome. This was about something far more powerful than wealth. It was about love, sacrifice, and the mysterious connections between human souls. Beginning electromagnetic stimulation sequence, Dr. Richardson announced. Marcus, remember, maintain contact, but don't force anything. Let Emma's brain show us what it needs. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of Emma's small hand in his. Immediately, images flooded his mind, not his memories, but somehow shared ones. He saw Sarah as she truly was, not the broken child on his operating table, but his bright, loving daughter who used to chase butterflies in their backyard. Emma, he whispered, can you hear me? Through the sedation, Emma squeezed his hand once. I'm going to tell you about Sarah while the doctors work. She would have loved you so much. She collected smooth stones from the creek behind our house, and she named every butterfly in our garden. Her favorite was a monarch named Princess Sunshine. The monitors began beeping frantically. Neural activity is spiking beyond normal parameters, Dr. Chen called out. Hold steady, Dr. Richardson commanded. Marcus, keep talking. Sarah used to say that blind people aren't really blind, they just see with their hearts first. She said when she grew up she wanted to be a doctor like Daddy, but one who fixed hearts instead of brains. Emma's fingers twitched, and suddenly the entire operating room filled with an impossible warmth. Every person present felt it, a presence gentle and loving like a child's laughter echoing through the sterile space. The damaged neural pathways are showing signs of regeneration, Dr. Chen whispered in amazement. The electromagnetic stimulation is working, but these patterns, it's as if there's a secondary neural network activating. Marcus felt it too, Sarah's presence as real as Emma's hand in his. His daughter was here somehow, guiding the healing process, showing Emma's brain how to rebuild itself through pathways of love rather than trauma. Sarah says to tell you the butterflies are waiting, Marcus said softly, tears streaming down his face. She says when you open your eyes, you'll see them dancing in the light. Emma's brain scans exploded with activity. Where damaged tissue had remained dormant for 4 years, new electrical impulses blazed like fireworks. The optic nerve, previously considered permanently severed, began showing faint but unmistakable signs of regeneration. This is medically impossible, Dr. Chen breathed. Neural tissue doesn't regenerate like this, especially not in cases of traumatic severance. Unless, Dr. Richardson said slowly, we're witnessing something beyond current medical understanding. Marcus, how do you feel? Like I'm finally letting go, Marcus replied. Sarah's not gone, she's been waiting here, in the space between love and healing, holding the light for other children who needed to find their way back. The monitors stabilized as the electromagnetic sequence completed. Emma's brain showed patterns that defied every textbook in neuroscience. Not just healing, but reconstruction on a level that suggested intelligence beyond the merely biological. Beginning reversal of sedation, Dr. Richardson announced. In a few minutes, we'll know if we've witnessed a miracle or... He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the weight of this moment. Emma would either wake up with her sight restored, or they would have to live with attempting something that pushed the boundaries of medical ethics and human understanding. As Emma's eyes began to flutter open, Marcus squeezed her hand one final time. Welcome back, little butterfly, he whispered. Time to see how beautiful the world really is. Emma's eyelids fluttered open like butterfly wings emerging from a chrysalis. For a moment, the operating room held its collective breath as she blinked slowly, her pupils dilating and contracting as they adjusted to light she hadn't seen in 4 years. Emma, Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. What do you see, sweetheart? Her eyes, once clouded with the milky film of blindness, now sparkled with crystal clarity. She turned her head slowly, taking in the surgical lights, the worried faces of the medical team, and finally, Marcus himself. You, she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. I see you, Marcus. You look just like I remembered, but... She paused, studying his face with the intensity of someone seeing a miracle. You look sad and happy at the same time. Dr. Richardson quickly performed preliminary vision tests, his hands shaking with excitement. Emma, can you read this eye chart? EFPTOZ, she recited perfectly, her voice growing stronger with each letter. The small ones say LEDFCZP. Victoria burst through the observation room doors, tears streaming down her face. Emma, my baby, you can see. But Emma's gaze remained fixed on Marcus. There's someone else here, she said softly. A girl who looks like me but older. She's standing right behind you, Marcus, and she's smiling. The room fell silent. Marcus felt the familiar presence he'd carried for 15 years, but now Emma could see what he'd only felt in his heart. She says her name is Sarah, Emma continued, her innocent voice carrying impossible knowledge. She says she's been waiting to thank you for letting her help me see again. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. Emma, what else does she say? She says she's not sad anymore because her love didn't die with her. It lived in your hands all this time, waiting for someone who needed healing. Emma's eyes filled with tears of joy. She says Daddy can stop hurting now because she's exactly where she's supposed to be. Dr. Chen frantically documented everything while Dr. Richardson ran additional tests. Emma's vision was not just restored, it was perfect, with 20/20 clarity that defied medical explanation. This is unprecedented, Dr. Richardson murmured. Complete neural regeneration and traumatic optic nerve damage, restoration of visual cortex function after 4 years of dormancy. We need to understand how this happened. Love, Emma said simply, still watching something invisible to the adults. Sarah says love is the strongest medicine, and Marcus had enough love for 2 daughters. Victoria knelt beside the operating table, taking her daughter's hand for the first time without feeling Emma's resentment. Emma, I'm so sorry for how cold I've been. Watching you struggle, not being able to fix it with money or power, it broke something in me. Emma looked at her mother with eyes that held wisdom far beyond her 7 years. You were protecting your heart, Mommy. Sarah says all parents do that when they're scared of losing their children. Marcus finally found his voice. Emma, can you still see Sarah? She's fading now, but she's not leaving. She says she'll always be in the light that lives behind my eyes. Emma reached toward Marcus. She wants you to have something. She pressed something invisible into his palm, but Marcus felt it. A warmth, a sense of completion he hadn't experienced since Sarah died. The crushing guilt that had defined 15 years of his life simply evaporated, replaced by profound peace. "She forgives me," he whispered. "She says there was never anything to forgive," Emma replied. "You saved her in the only way that mattered. You kept her love alive until someone needed it." The miracle of Emma's sight was just the beginning of transformations that would reshape everyone's understanding of healing, redemption, and the mysterious ways love transcends even death itself. 2 weeks later, Emma stood in the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows watching the sunrise paint Manhattan in shades of gold and rose. Her recovery had been nothing short of miraculous. Not just her vision, but her entire personality had transformed from the bitter, angry child she'd been into someone radiant with joy and compassion. "The colors are so much more beautiful than I remembered," she told Marcus, who sat nearby reading to her from medical journals. Victoria had insisted he move into the guest wing while Emma adjusted to her new sight, but everyone knew the arrangement was becoming permanent. "Tell me what you see," Marcus encouraged, marking his place in the journal about cellular memory research that now bore Emma's case as its leading example. "Purple clouds with golden edges like Sarah's favorite dress that she shows me sometimes. Buildings that look like giant puzzle pieces fitting together. And people." Emma pressed her nose against the glass. "People walking down there like tiny ants, but each one carrying their own light." Victoria emerged from her office, coffee in hand, looking more relaxed than she had in years. The revelation about Marcus's past had shattered her preconceptions about worth and class. She'd quietly arranged for his medical license review, hiring the best lawyers to petition for reinstatement based on Emma's unprecedented recovery. "The hospital called," she announced. "3 more families with children who have similar trauma cases want to consult with Marcus. Word is spreading about what happened with Emma." Marcus's face clouded with concern. "Victoria, I can't promise other miracles. Emma's case was unique. The cellular memory connection, the timing, whatever presence helped us." "Sarah," Emma corrected gently. "Her name is Sarah, and she didn't just help me. She helped you remember who you really are." Dr. Richardson arrived for Emma's weekly evaluation, his medical bag packed with new testing equipment. The case had attracted international attention, with neurological experts from around the world requesting access to Emma's brain scans. "How are those headaches, Emma?" he asked, setting up his portable examination tools. "Better. Sarah says they're just growing pains. My brain remembering how to see dreams in color instead of darkness." Victoria watched Marcus carefully. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd witnessed him transform from the humble janitor back into the confident physician he'd once been. But something else was happening too. Something that made her heart skip in ways she hadn't felt since before Emma's accident hardened her soul. "Marcus," she said after Dr. Richardson finished his tests. "I have a proposition." Emma giggled. "Mommy likes Marcus," she announced with 7-year-old directness. "She gets the same warm feelings around him that I feel when Sarah visits." Victoria blushed furiously. "Emma." "What?" "It's true. Your light gets brighter when he's here and his light gets softer around you. Sarah says that's what happens when people's hearts recognize each other." Marcus looked at Victoria with new understanding. The wealthy, distant woman he'd seen for 3 years had revealed layers of vulnerability and strength that drew him in ways he hadn't expected. "What's your proposition?" "I want to fund a research foundation focused on cases like Emma's. Unconventional healing, the intersection of emotional trauma and neural recovery, cellular memory theory, all of it." Victoria's business mind was spinning with possibilities. "With your medical expertise and my resources, we could help children who've been written off as hopeless." "The Sarah Thompson Foundation for Childhood Neural Recovery," Emma suggested immediately. Both adults stared at her. "How did you?" Marcus began. "Sarah whispered it to me just now. She likes the idea of her name helping other kids find their light again." Marcus felt tears welling up. "You'd do that? Use Sarah's name?" Victoria stepped closer, her hand finding his. "Marcus, your daughter's love saved my daughter's life. The least I can do is make sure that love keeps spreading to other families who need hope." Emma clapped her hands in delight. "And the best part is now I can see Marcus and Mommy falling in love. Sarah says it's the most beautiful thing she's ever watched happen." Dr. Richardson packed his equipment, shaking his head in amazement. "In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this family. Emma, your recovery isn't just healing you, it's healing everyone around you." Emma smiled, her eyes bright with secrets only she could see. "That's what love does, Dr. Richardson. It doesn't just fix what's broken. It makes everything more beautiful than it was before." As the sun set over Manhattan, Marcus realized his 15 years of penance were finally complete. Sarah's death had nearly destroyed him, but her love, channeled through Emma's healing, was about to give dozens of other children the miracle of restored hope. 3 months after Emma's surgery, the Sarah Thompson Foundation occupied an entire floor of a Manhattan medical building, its waiting rooms filled with families who'd traveled from around the world seeking the impossible. Marcus, his medical license fully reinstated, worked alongside a team of specialists investigating cases where conventional medicine had failed. Dr. Thompson, 8-year-old Miguel Santos, looked up at Marcus with eyes clouded by the same traumatic blindness Emma had suffered. His mother, Isabella, clutched Marcus's hand with desperate hope. "Tell me about your accident, Miguel," Marcus said gently, kneeling to the boy's level while Emma sat nearby, now serving as an unofficial guide for other children facing the same journey she'd completed. "Car hit us 2 years ago," Miguel whispered. "Doctors say my brain forgot how to see, but Emma says you have magic hands that remember things." Emma leaned forward. "Not magic, Miguel. Love. Dr. Marcus carries his daughter's love in his hands, and sometimes that love knows how to wake up sleeping parts of our brains." Marcus had learned not to question Emma's intuitive understanding of his healing process. In the past 3 months, she'd correctly identified which children would respond to his treatment, and which cases required different approaches. Her ability seemed connected to whatever spiritual presence she still maintained contact with. Victoria entered the examination room carrying files. "Marcus, the research team in Boston wants to replicate your cellular memory transfer technique. They're asking for detailed protocols." "That's the problem," Marcus replied, standing. "I can't codify what happens during these healings. Each child's connection is unique and the presence that guides the healing." He glanced at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "It's not something I control." Isabella Santos spoke broken English mixed with Spanish. "Por favor, doctor. Miguel es todo que tengo. Please, he is all I have." Emma suddenly stood up, her eyes focusing on empty air beside Miguel. "She's here," she announced quietly. "Who?" Marcus asked, though his heart already knew. "Sarah. She says Miguel's accident wasn't just trauma. There's something else. A gift hiding behind the injury." Emma walked to Miguel and placed her small hand on his forehead. "She says when his sight returns, he'll see things others can't. Like I do." Miguel gasped, his clouded eyes suddenly tracking movement in the empty space where Emma was looking. "I see her," he whispered in wonder. "A girl with golden hair. She's beautiful." Marcus's breath caught. Only Emma had ever been able to see Sarah's presence before. "Miguel," Emma said gently, "Sarah wants to show you something. Close your eyes and let her light touch the dark places in your mind." Isabella watched in amazement as her son's face transformed from despair to wonder. Where his eyes had been milky white for 2 years, tiny flecks of brown began to appear. "Mijo, your eyes." Isabella gasped. Miguel blinked slowly, his pupils beginning to contract and dilate normally for the first time since his accident. "Mommy, I can see shapes, light, and shadows." Marcus immediately began medical assessments while Victoria called Dr. Richardson, but Emma continued her conversation with the invisible presence only she and now Miguel could perceive. "Sarah says there are 12 children coming to the foundation who can be healed this way," Emma reported. "But after that, something changes. The connection between worlds won't be as strong." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, checking Miguel's rapidly improving vision. "She says her work here is almost finished. Once she helps the last child, she needs to move on to wherever souls go when they're done healing the world." Marcus felt his heart clench. "Emma, what about you? Will you still be able to see her?" Emma smiled with the serene wisdom that had become her trademark. "She'll always be in the light behind my eyes, Marcus. But she won't visit the way she does now. She says 12 healed children plus me makes 13, and 13 is the number of completion." Isabella Santos wept as Miguel's vision cleared enough to see her face. "Gracias, Dios mío. Gracias, Dr. Marcus." But Marcus looked at Emma with growing understanding. "You knew this from the beginning, didn't you? That Sarah's presence was temporary?" "I knew she was sharing her light to fix what the world broke," Emma replied. "But I also knew that once the healing was done, she'd need to become something bigger, a guardian for all children who are lost in darkness, not just the ones who come to our foundation." Miguel suddenly laughed, his eyes now completely clear and focused. "She says to tell you something, Dr. Marcus. She says she's proud of the daddy you became after she went to heaven." Marcus knelt beside both children, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd witnessed. 12 more children would receive the miracle of restored sight through Sarah's lingering presence. Then his daughter would finally be free to rest, her earthly mission complete. Then we'd better make sure every one of those healings counts, he said, embracing Emma and Miguel together. Sarah deserves to move on knowing she saved everyone she was meant to save. The 13th child arrived on a snowy December morning, exactly 9 months after Emma's miraculous recovery. 10-year-old David Kim had been blind since birth, due to a rare genetic condition that no surgery could correct. His parents, Dr. Jennifer Kim and Professor James Kim, were both medical professionals who'd exhausted every conventional treatment. Dr. Thompson, we've read about your work, but David's case is different, Dr. Kim explained, as her son sat quietly holding Emma's hand in the Foundation's main consultation room. He's never had sight to lose. His visual cortex never developed properly. Marcus reviewed David's extensive medical files while Emma and the boy engaged in whispered conversation. Over the past 9 months, 11 children had experienced varying degrees of vision restoration through the mysterious healing process guided by Sarah's presence. Each success had drained Emma slightly, as if she were somehow channeling limited energy. David is special, Emma announced suddenly. Sarah says he's the reason she stayed so long. The others were healing from broken sight, but David needs to be given sight that never existed. David nodded eagerly. I dream about colors sometimes. Purple like Emma says the sunrise looks and green like grass feels under my feet. The voice in the light tells me I'll see everything when it's time. Marcus felt a familiar chill. David, what voice in the light? The girl with golden hair. She visits my dreams and shows me what sight will feel like. She says her daddy has hands that can plant seeing seeds in gardens that never grew before. Dr. Kim gasped. David's never mentioned voices or dreams about sight before today. Emma squeezed David's hand tighter. Because today is when Sarah finishes her work. She's been saving her strongest light for the hardest healing. Victoria entered with Dr. Richardson and the full medical team. Word had spread through the neurological community that this case would be the Foundation's most ambitious attempt, trying to create functional vision in a brain that had never processed visual information. The risks are enormous, Dr. Richardson warned. We're not just repairing damaged pathways, we're attempting to create entirely new neural networks. If something goes wrong, David could suffer massive brain damage, Marcus finished. I understand the risks, but Emma says Sarah is confident about this case. Because it's what she was born to do, Emma said softly, her eyes focused on the space beside David. Sarah died before she could help anyone else see the world's beauty. David is her chance to give someone sight as a gift of pure love, not just healing from trauma. The surgery was scheduled for that afternoon. The entire medical community watching through livestream as Marcus and his team attempted something that challenged every understanding of neural development and visual cortex formation. As David was prepared for surgery, Emma suddenly grabbed Marcus's arm. She wants to tell you something important before she goes. What is it, sweetheart? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Sarah says she's not just your daughter who died. She's become your daughter who lives. In every child you heal, in every moment you choose love over fear. In every time you use your hands to bring light to darkness. Marcus knelt beside Emma, his own tears flowing. What else does she want me to know? That she's proud you learned the difference between playing God and serving love. When she died, you thought your hands were weapons. Now you know they're tools for divine healing. David, listening intently despite his pre-surgery sedation, smiled peacefully. Dr. Marcus, the golden hair girl, says this won't hurt because she's going to hold all the pain for me. She says that's what angels do. They carry the hurt so children can carry the joy. As they wheeled David into surgery, Emma whispered one final message. Sarah says after today she becomes something bigger than one person's guardian angel. She becomes the light that guides all parents who've lost children, showing them how love survives everything. Marcus squeezed Emma's hand as they followed David's gurney. Are you ready to say goodbye to Sarah? Emma smiled through her tears. I'm ready to watch her become everything she was meant to be. Besides, she'll never really be gone. Every time I see something beautiful, that's Sarah looking through my eyes at the world she helped me love. The operating room doors closed behind them as Marcus prepared to attempt the impossible one final time. Guided by his daughter's love and witnessed by a 7-year-old girl who understood that some miracles only happen when we're brave enough to let them transform us completely. David's surgery lasted 14 hours, the longest and most complex procedure in the Foundation's history. Marcus worked with microscopic precision, his hands guided by an invisible presence that seemed to know exactly where each neural pathway needed to connect. Emma sat in the observation room, her face serene despite the marathon length of the operation. Neural activity is unlike anything we've ever recorded, Dr. Chen reported, monitoring the brain scans. It's as if entirely new networks are forming in real time, creating visual processing centers that should have developed in infancy. Victoria brought Emma sandwiches and juice, but the child barely ate. Her attention focused completely on the surgery below. "How do you feel, sweetheart?" "Light," Emma replied dreamily. "Like I'm floating in warm light. Sarah is using so much of her energy for David that I can feel myself getting lighter too." "Doctor," Richardson frowned at the monitors. "Emma's brain activity is synchronizing with David's surgical patterns. Whatever connection exists between her and this healing process, it's stronger than ever." At hour 10, something extraordinary happened. David's brain, which had never shown visual cortex activity, suddenly blazed with electrical impulses that mirrored those of a person with normal sight. The previously dormant regions responsible for processing light, color, depth, and movement awakened like a garden blooming in fast forward. "This is impossible," Dr. Chen whispered. "He's developing complete visual neural networks during surgery. The electromagnetic stimulation shouldn't be capable of creating new brain tissue." Emma suddenly stood up, her face radiant. "She's doing it. Sarah is giving David part of her own sight, the sight she would have had if she'd grown up." In the operating room, Marcus felt Sarah's presence more powerfully than ever before. His daughter was pouring her very essence into David's healing, sacrificing her connection to the earthly realm to grant this child the miracle of first sight. "David," Marcus whispered as the surgery neared completion. "Can you hear me?" The boy's sedated voice was barely audible. "I can hear you, Dr. Marcus, and I can hear her singing. The golden hair girl is singing about colors I'm going to see." Tears streamed down Marcus's face as he completed the final connections. "What is she singing about?" "About butterflies dancing in sunlight, about her daddy's kind eyes, about the purple flowers in her garden at home." David's voice grew stronger. "She says when I wake up, I'll see all the beautiful things she never got to show anyone else." Emma pressed her hands against the observation window. "She's saying goodbye now. Sarah is ready to become something bigger than one guardian angel." As the surgery concluded and David's anesthesia was reversed, the entire medical team held its breath. When his eyes fluttered open, they were no longer the vacant orbs of congenital blindness, but clear, focused, and filled with wonder. "I can see," David whispered, his voice filled with awe. "I can see light and colors," and his gaze found Marcus's face. "I can see you, Dr. Marcus. You look exactly like the kind man in my dreams." But Emma had collapsed in the observation room, her face pale but peaceful. Victoria rushed to her side as Dr. Richardson checked her vitals. Emma, what's wrong?" Emma's eyes opened slowly, and for a moment they held a depth of sadness that seemed impossible in someone so young. "Sarah's gone," she whispered. "Not dead gone, but transformed. She gave David so much of her light that she became pure spirit. No more visits, no more whispered conversations." Victoria held Emma close as Marcus burst through the observation room doors, having left David in the capable hands of the surgical team. "Emma, how do you feel?" "Complete," she said simply. "Sarah finished what she came to do. 13 children can see because she chose to turn her tragedy into other people's miracles. And now what, sweetheart?" Emma smiled, her eyes bright with mature understanding. "Now we get to live the life she made possible. David will grow up seeing butterflies and sunrises and all the beautiful things Sarah wanted to show the world. The other 12 children will remember what it means to hope. And you, Marcus." She reached up and touched his face gently. "You get to be both the doctor who heals broken children and the father who carries his daughter's love in everything he does." Marcus lifted Emma into his arms, feeling a profound sense of completion. Sarah was gone, but her love had become something eternal, a healing force that would continue touching lives long after the miraculous surgeries ended. "What happens now?" Victoria asked, taking Marcus's free hand. Emma giggled, sounding like a normal 7-year-old for the first time in months. "Now we become a family, and we help other families find their light. Sarah's work is finished, but ours is just beginning." Through the surgical suite windows, they could see David sitting up in recovery, his eyes wide with wonder as he experienced sight for the very first time, his face glowing with the same joy Sarah had gifted to 13 children through her father's healing hands. 1 year later, Emma stood in the butterfly garden behind the Sarah Thompson Foundation's new Children's Rehabilitation Center, watching David chase monarchs with the pure joy of a child experiencing the world's beauty for the first time every day. His sight had stabilized perfectly, and he'd become the Foundation's youngest volunteer, helping newly healed children adjust to their restored vision. "Emma!" David called out, his voice bright with excitement. "Come see this. The orange butterfly has patterns that look like stained glass windows." Emma laughed, running to join him, her own sight now so natural she rarely remembered the 4 years of darkness. At 8 years old, she'd grown into a confident, compassionate child whose wisdom seemed to bridge the gap between innocence and profound understanding. Marcus emerged from the Foundation building, his white coat traded for casual clothes as he enjoyed a rare afternoon off. The past year had transformed him completely, from broken janitor to renowned pioneer in neural regeneration therapy, but more importantly from a man crushed by guilt to someone radiant with purpose and love. "How's our newest patient?" Emma asked, settling beside him on the garden bench. Little Maria responded beautifully to treatment. Her sight should be fully restored within the week. Marcus smiled, watching David discover the intricate patterns of butterfly wings. 13 successful cases this quarter, all using conventional techniques combined with the emotional healing protocols Sarah taught us. Emma nodded thoughtfully. "She's still helping, isn't she? Even though we can't see her anymore." "Every day," Marcus confirmed, "in the way my hands seem to know exactly where healing is needed, in the peace that settles over frightened children during surgery, in the hope that families carry when they walk into our building." Victoria approached from the Foundation's main entrance, elegant as always, but with a warmth in her eyes that hadn't existed during her cold corporate years. "The documentary crew finished filming," she announced, settling beside Marcus with the natural ease of someone who'd found her place in the world. "They want to call it the butterfly effect, how love heals the impossible." Emma grinned. Sarah would love that title. She always said butterflies were proof that beautiful things could come from dark places. The past year had brought changes none of them could have imagined. Marcus and Victoria's relationship had blossomed slowly, built on shared purpose and the profound bond of watching their children heal together. Emma had gained not just sight, but a mother who finally understood that love mattered more than money, and a father figure whose hands carried both healing and unconditional acceptance. "Dr. Marcus," David ran over, his cheeks flushed with excitement. "I counted 17 different butterflies today, and each one looked like a tiny flying rainbow." Marcus ruffled the boy's hair, remembering Sarah's fascination with the butterflies in their old backyard. "Did you know butterflies can see colors we can't even imagine? They have 4 types of color receptors compared to our 3. "Really? So they see extra beautiful things we miss? Just like some people can see beauty in places where others only see problems," Emma added meaningfully, glancing between Marcus and Victoria. Dr. Richardson joined them in the garden, carrying files and wearing the satisfied expression of a man who'd witnessed medical miracles become routine. "The International Neurological Society wants to establish the Sarah Thompson Protocol as standard treatment for traumatic childhood blindness. Marcus, you've revolutionized the field." Marcus shook his head humbly. "Sarah revolutionized it. I just learned to listen to what love was trying to teach me." Emma stood up, her attention drawn to something at the garden's edge. For just a moment, the golden afternoon light seemed to shimmer in a familiar pattern, and she could swear she heard the faint sound of childish laughter carried on the breeze. "What is it, sweetheart?" Victoria asked, following Emma's gaze. "Nothing," Emma smiled, understanding that some gifts were meant to be private treasures, just remembering how it felt to see sunlight for the first time again. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Marcus gathered his chosen family close. David chattered excitedly about the day's butterfly discoveries. Victoria shared plans for expanding the Foundation's reach to underserved communities, and Emma contributed the quiet wisdom that had become her signature. "You know what I love most about our story?" Emma said as they walked back toward the building. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "It didn't end with happily ever after. It began there." Emma took both Marcus's and Victoria's hands, with David skipping alongside them. "Sarah's miracle wasn't just giving us back what we'd lost. It was showing us what we could become when we let love transform everything broken into something even more beautiful." The butterfly garden settled into peaceful twilight, 17 monarchs finding rest among the flowers planted in memory of a little girl whose love had touched 13 children's lives and created a family bound together by the miracle of healing, hope, and the extraordinary power of a father's hands that learned to carry light instead of sorrow.